Welcome back to the lab. So, Thursday, a little bit of a bonus extra video. I'll show you what we're up to. This thing here, it's missing from the engine bay. Now, we all know about the clutch slave cylinder. This plastic thing here that failed because it's just made of plastic and it's... Oh, I dropped it. Oh, what a shame. Oops. Oh dear. Oh dear. Anyway, we know all about that. So that's been repaired and there's a new one in there. And look, we've got a clutch master cylinder full of fluid and there's no fluid on the floor. We've also got a gearbox that's been rebuilt and it's got a synchro that now has the extra ring that's supposed to be inside there. It doesn't just have those two rings. It has the second brass ring in there. So that should be good. And we've got some of our lovely Penrite fluids in the gearbox. Yes. Yes. So that's all assembled. Everything's all completely, being brave, 100% back together. Except I've not put the center console in there. Laziness, perhaps, I guess. It was under some stuff on the back seat. But I'll put that in shortly. Now, I can't test it just yet because top of engine is in a state of semi-disassembly. Now, the Friday that the owner came up to pick up the car, I was driving around and I was fiddling? I was tuning the idle so it would idle better because it was having some hunting issues and stuff like that. When we got the tune done way back, there wasn't really time for all that sort of carry on, and some things have changed since then, so not knocking what the tuner did at the time, because what it is now isn't what it was then. So it did need adjusting so it would idle properly now with everything that's there now. Anyway, was talking to some old work colleagues, showing them the car while I was out driving around, because I was just down the road from the bus stop where I was picking up the owner, and there was a tiny little puff of condensation came out from, it was actually the right hand side, we saw it out of the exhaust system, just a little, maybe 1 second, you know, just a little faint puff, and I was like, yeah, that was interesting, never seen it do that before. Never mind, it didn't miss or anything like that. It was still running perfectly fine. And as I left that yard, I'm sure I heard it sort of half drop a cylinder for maybe 3 beats or something. And again, I was like, okay, modified car, weird things happen. It hasn't had millions of dollars development spent on it to make it run perfectly. The tune might not be 100% for what it is. I can live with that. Ran fine the rest of the time. Get the car back here, pull the car a million pieces to fix this here. I wonder what happens if you stand on it. Apparently it stands up to that all right. Yep, never mind. We should burn that. Pull it all to pieces, that's cool. Yeah, done. Car's in a million bits. Sitting there having dinner a couple of hours later and I was like, the intercooler core's leaking. Uh-oh. So I came out and I wrote it on the whiteboard. The whiteboard over there gets lots of things written on it. So next day I come out, blanked off the throttle so that no air could escape from there. Put my regulator into the manifold system, pressurized it, watched the coolant level in here, and this is for the water to air intercooler system. Sure enough, the water level started to go up a little bit and then started bubbling. So, okay, we've definitely got a leak in there. We need to look at that. So I took it all apart, the whole assembly off to get your intercooler core out. There's the intercooler core there. That's new. That wasn't there before. This has happened while it was being repaired. I'll use that term loosely. But so I took it apart and I thought it would have something to do with these spots here where the bolts that hold the supercharger on top of the manifold physically touch this core, which is not ideal at all. I thought that would be where the problem was, but it's not. there was a leak, a pinhole leak from a crack where one of these tubes meets the plate on the end here. Now, I am not brave enough to try and fix that myself. Don't look at this. I did not do this. So we took it to a local radiator repair specialist who said he was going to epoxy it. So I was happy with that. Epoxy sounded like a good idea to me. And I went to pick it up and he had tried to braze it. And that whole core is a write-off now. That's gone burger. We can't put that back in the car. So that's a little bit of a headache. But never mind. So the good guys at Repco allowed me to ferret through their radiator books. And it just so happens that a Honda Jazz has the right length tube set up to go in here. Now, it's not the same. It's not the same core. It's 26mm core, not a 35. So we're going to lose, what's 33%, let's call it that, of our core thickness, which is not ideal. But it's a solution for now. I've contacted Stillen to see if I can get one of these. No response so far, and we're on a tight time frame. So I'm in the process of going to chop this brand new Honda Jazz radiator up. There's probably 2 cores worth in that. Yeah, I'd say it's 2. So I can get it wrong once. And there's enough to have another crack at it. That'll be sufficient, right? Some of these, some cars run these superchargers on top with no intercooler at all. So he's not running massive boost on it. It's not ideal. It's not the perfect solution, but it's a solution for this week. I was going to say today, but it's really a bit more than a one-day fix. So let's get on with that. Choppy. Chop, chop. That's not the perfect size, but I reckon I can make it work. Could be a disaster you're watching unfolding here, but we'll see how we get on. Now, there's a problem I hadn't thought about or foreseen or envisaged. Twin core, obviously. I thought it was dual pass, and that half of it all flowed this way, turned around in the end tank and came back. That's how you normally do it with radiators and stuff. We've not got a dual core radiator here. It's a single. If we got a slightly thicker one, i.e. 35mm like this, where it may have been dual core, it becomes a problem because they've done their dual pass differently to how I thought they would have. So they've got whatever, it's in or out, whichever way it is, in the bottom row, and then in or out, whatever it is, the opposite way. And the top row, a little bit of a technical issue. I can mill this out, and I can put a plate in there, tack it in there, and that's same deal, same. So I had a bit of a sleep on it. I've gone for the tried and tested method of forget planning. Just build it. Just make it work. Doesn't always work out. Usually does. Not too bad. So bit of debauchery gone on the end tank to make it fit. End plate to make it fit the end tank. You'll see this is quite recessed into here. That gives us, it was roughly 225mm from 325mm, sorry, from here to here, which would have helped make it fit inside the manifold, but it's just caused a bit of a drama at the ends, welding all this up and everything, and trim down the length of these tubes inside here, because this is a very shallow tank. So I'll get this end done, that'll be alright. Then I'll deal with, this is going to go, clean that up too, partway through doing the diff, and then bits turned up for the Gloria, and to stop that and carry on. So I'll use this, we're going to keep calling this the semi-reliable. I should actually get a sticker made for that, shouldn't I? Semi-reliable. So I'll mill that out, I'll slice through here, I'll put a plate across here, and that will get our cross-flow radiator deal going like that, back like that. That'll work fine. The length of this may need to be adjusted a little bit. I can't adjust it a whole lot. This end's fine, like we could trim this way back 10 mils off, that would be okay. This end, not really. But there's actually no reason for this particular piece being here like that anyway. So I could potentially chop that off, make that come out here like that. Or, once we've gone to all that trouble, I could maybe make a whole new end tank. But that would take a bit of effort, not too much work there. We'll see how we go. Going alright so far. Haven't blown any holes in anything. Looks alright. Oh, there might be, is that a hole there? Nah. Not the cleanest of welds, but it will do. When you're doing something like that, do something like that. Just stops if you have a whoopsie or any heat going directly onto these tubes. These tubes are thinner than, I'm not going to say thinner than a Coke can, around about the same thickness as a Coke can. This is a tube that I've cut in half here. You can see that thickness. Compared to my finger, it's pretty thin, very hard to deal with if you're trying to weld it. So the ends were the hardest parts to weld. That needs to be pressure tested. Very, very hard to weld that very, very thin stuff onto great big thick cast. Thickness of this is, I don't know, 4 mils or something like that. 3 mils, 4 mils. I'm going to say, I don't know, quarter of a mil thickness for this. So she's not easy. Right, so clean up this mess, put this in here, and see about fitting it into the manifold. Actually, I'll see about fitting it into the manifold first, because it might be that we don't actually even use this. We come up with a different system that'll help us deal with this extra length that we've got here. Jokes about extra length will be saved for later. Yeah. So big sucky, blowy, shiny thing removed from there. Quite hard to close that. Put this back over here. We won't need to go under there for a little while. Shiny, blowy, sucky, whatever I called it, thing there. This is how they hold it into the manifold, right? There's a bit of adhesive, sealant, goop, grey stuff, whatever. I think it was blacker in there originally, just to stop it rattling and buzzing and humming in there, eh? So the idea of this is to give it some room for expansion and contraction, I believe. Because obviously if you heat things up and cool things down, expand, contract, and then crack tubes in the end, which is what's happened to this original one. So we see if it actually still fits. So that goes in there like that. We'll take the goop off there and it'll fit better. And we should have enough room to do our end tank there. I'm going to make that longer so that we don't have to do anything with this tank, because this one's harder to deal with. So we'll leave that alone, make that longer that way. Done. Right, so nearly finished with the debauchery here. Gonna make that groove that's in there that we just talked about. So from that face there, which used to be a little bit shorter, to the, I've got to hold the angle right. Where are we? There we are, to the end of this tank here. Let's call it 350. I'm on a little bit of an angle, a couple of millimeters either way isn't going to matter for what we're doing here. So that face ends up being there. So we come through right on the money, because we're not using this edge here, we're using this edge here. So that's good. that's now going to work with that tank. That was a lot easier to do that than to make a whole custom tank for here. So enough talking about that. We simply won't do that. Now I've got to mount this and that wonderful machine, semi-reliable, and do for, as we talked about, get rid of this, put one in the other way. It's pretty easy. It's well past lunchtime, but I hear there's pizza coming, so yum, 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 yum. Perfect. So that sits exactly where it needs to sit. Locates in its little groove in the end there. Now I just got to do this bit. I guess I can just put that there, hit it with a hammer. That'll work, hey? Smash, smash. Good as gold. The big test. Can't go past this. Traditional bucket of water, pressurised, that tap's closed. She's got pressure in there. We'll show you that in a second. No bubbles. Oh, this is hard, one-handed. No bubbles. I've just been careful because that's only held in by its own pressure. If I give it a nudge and it flies out, it'll do 1,000,000 miles an hour and damage something. Told you there was pressure. Tap's leaking. Fitting is leaking. Tank is not. Good as gold. A little bit late. I wanted to get this finished today. 20 minutes late. She's good. So, there you go. Pressure's gone out of there. It was only 14 psi or whatever it was, something like that. Now, next step is put that thing in the thing that's under here thing, and make it all go again, which shouldn't take long. It's probably 20 minutes work. No, it's a bit optimistic, isn't it? There's probably an hour's work to put that back into the car, and then we can check that the clutch is all working properly and everything, and the gearbox is shifting gears, and make sure none of the swarf is left behind that just fell on there. Look at that, that's just fallen in over, but that'll go into the engine, anything that's on here. So this all needs a good clean before it goes back into the car. Right, so it has actually been back together and it has run, and guess what, it leaked. But it's not the core that's leaking, it's not any of this or the welding or this here. It's found a new trick that wasn't a problem before but is now. We've used slightly different system to what Stillen did. I've welded some AN fittings on the other side of this there, so we can put great big hoses there on the system instead of generic rubber hose, which doesn't look so great. And due to that, there's a different way to make it seal in between here and here. And what I did was use, look, it's there, 3-bond. It's going well this morning, aren't we? And just applied a liberal amount of sealant around these areas here. Did the bolt up that holds that onto there, and that was fine. That worked brilliant the first time. It's not now. It's possible because I was a bit brief on my timeline in between bolting this onto here and sticking it on that there and firing it up, and it's possible the sealant didn't have time to cure and clearances might be a bit high and it's just pulled the coolant through there and condensation out of the exhaust. Whoop, turn it off. Bad, 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 bad. Close the throttle up. Pressure test off that fitting. Yeah, she's leaking. I'll try it again. There's potential, if it doesn't work terribly well, I can modify this to accept an O-ring in between here and here, and that'll sort it out. But otherwise, I think, yeah, just give the sealant a bit more time to cure and we should be okay. So, read the instructions online. Cure time for that is actually 24 hours. some similar materials, gasket sealants and things like that, tack free time about 30 minutes. So probably leave it for a couple of hours and we should be okay. And look, I'm going to bench test it again assembled like this and see what we've got. Done. Well, not done, but back together and running. Obviously some things not on yet, a couple of things to do. Bit of condensation to clear out the exhaust. It's amazing how such a tiny amount of water creates such a huge amount of steam. A lot quieter in here, eh? Things that happen in here that didn't before is the pedal works. Oh, does it? Hang on. Oh yeah. First gear. Second gear. Don't mind that, it's drive shaft. Third gear with no crunch. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. And we have reverse. Reverse. Sorry about the light. There you go, that makes it better, doesn't it, if I hide the light, the sunlight coming in. So before I need to put this stuff back together and put that on and all that sort of carry on, but whatever. Sitting idling, I have to do things with one hand, try and cover that light for you. Sitting idling, put your foot on the clutch and try and put in third gear, and there was a horrendous crunch. Got some temp and everything. I wouldn't say the gearbox is hot by a long way, but that's mint. Far out. Guys, the fan's turning on. Good, we're up to 10. Okay, it's time for lunch. Okay, Sunday morning. It just goes on and on. So that's it, we're done. That's it. I'm going to pull the pin on that. It's up there on the hoist. As far as I know, everything is okay now. There's a couple of hoses he wants to change for braided hoses, but to be honest, this thing's just throwing so many problems. Every time you touch something, it chucks up something else, and it just goes on and on and on. So at this point in time, I'm just going to say, we're finished. That's it. Drive it away. Drive it away. Here's some hoses. Feel free to change those if you wish. Yeah, so I did take it for a test drive. Everything was mint. Left the driveway. 2 gear changes up the road. Throttle turned off. Electronic throttle packed a fault. So I turned the car off. Started again. That resets all those systems. It was fine. Give it a couple of revs. It's fine. Wait. Yep, it's good. Try and drive it up the road. Throttle turns off. So, rinse and repeat about 6 times to get the car back to the workshop. Plug in the laptop. It had a tracking code. So basically, if you imagine a graph and the computer's expecting to see one thing based on what the other sensors are doing, and it's seeing something different, and it says, oh, that's no good, and picks a fault. So I reset the fault code and took it driving again with the laptop plugged in, anticipating to try and log it and see what was going on, what was happening, and now it's fine. So she's learning new tricks to try and stay nice and warm and comfortable in my garage. Unfortunately, Gloria, I'm going to evict you. You need to move out. We have some other friends that want to spend some time in here, and it's been nice, but we need to move along. Yeesh. Jokes aside. Yeah, it did have a little problem with the throttle. It's fine now. So that's weird. I probably need to do some test driving before the owner comes. I don't want to send him off way down country and have the thing fault on him. So I'll repeat the similar temperatures and all that sort of carry on today. See what we've got. I had inadvertently put the neutral position sensor and the reverse position sensor switches on the wrong side, so we had the reverse lights on all the time except for when it was in reverse. So I've had to swap those over. Fortunately, it was just enough room to get that done without dropping the gearbox. So that was the one thing I got wrong, I think, as far as the gearbox goes, but that's resolved. The GK Tex shifter kit, for some reason that got a bit tight when things got hot, and the spring that allows the lever to move up and down so that you push it down to come across into reverse, that was binding up and holding itself down, so then it was making it difficult to select fifth gear without going too far across the gate and trying to bump into a gear that isn't there, seventh gear, if you know what I mean. So a slight modification to that's now okay. But that's that. There's still a little bit of condensation to clear out of the exhaust. It's going away. We've had obviously quite a bit go through there with just a little bit of water into the manifold, expands into steam. You guys can look up the maths on that and the science on that. It does not take much water to make a lot of condensation. So I need to ensure that's all cleared before he drives the car away. And hopefully this is maybe the last video for this car. It's been nice, Gloria. See ya. Bye.